When it comes to accents and how we perceive people who speak with different accents, we all carry some level of bias. Some of us recognize it and some don't, but in reality, every one of us is influenced by it to some extent. So the moment we hear someone speak, we often almost automatically associate certain qualities with that accent, such as competence, education, or professionalism, or the absence of these qualities.
Welcome all to the Accent Journey, podcast for non-native speakers of American English who want to sound clearer, more confident, and more natural when they speak. I'm Steve Nelson, your American English accent coach from accentfirst.com. And once again, we're going to mix things up a little bit with an interview with one of my accent students, Robert, a native speaker of Hungarian. Robert tells us his thoughts on why he feels it's important to make his accent closer to that of a native speaker's, how he realized this was essential, and he shares with us some of the techniques he's used to modify his accent, as well as his advice for those of you who want to modify your own accent. At the end of the interview, I'll give him some specific feedback on how he could make his accent sound more natural to native speakers of American English. So here's my interview with Robert. And welcome to the podcast, Robert. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
When we ask in English that what do you do or tell me something about it, it boils down to a job. So from that perspective, I feel myself as a programmer. So that's what I do for a living. However, I have businesses, but what's close to my heart is programming. So that's my passion.
So you're a programmer and non-native speaker of English. How long have you been working on your accent, Robert? And why did you decide to look for someone to help you with this?
Well, I learned English for a while, actually from my studies at the university, or even before that. But that was a few years ago when I realized why accent matters and why I should put emphasis on that. So we are working together about 3 years now, I guess.
4 years.
4
Yeah.
years.
We've been working together for a little over 4 years now.
That makes me think that it's not an accident that we have achieved something.
So why did you decide to look for someone? You mentioned you realized that accent matters, and how did you come to this realization? And why did you decide to do something about it?
Okay, if I may share my thoughts about why accent matters to me,
Please.
especially in a business setting. So if I may be brutally honest, when it comes to accents and how we perceive people who speak with different accents, we all carry some level of bias. Some of us recognize it and some don't, but in reality, every one of us is influenced by it to some extent. So the moment we hear someone speak, we often almost automatically associate certain qualities with that accent, such as competence, education, or professionalism, or the absence of these qualities. So the problem is that these impressions are usually subconscious, which makes them difficult to notice and even harder to correct. Let me give you an example from my own experience. So just a few weeks ago, we had an online meeting with folks from a Northeastern European company. No names, of course, but
Okay.
they were introducing and showcasing some of the products that we were interested in. But their accent made the communication a bit awkward, sometimes to the point where it affected the clarity of their ideas. So, yeah, their product was actually solid. So I couldn't help but think that if they'd had someone presenting it with a smoother accent, a richer vocabulary, and a more convincing tone, they might have come across as much more credible. So Because of the communication issues and the accent and some language problems, their presentation didn't build much trust. So I was hesitant to choose their product. But actually, I was confused. So in the end, I sat down and listed the objective reasons to collaborate with them or not. And I realized I had no factual reason to refuse them. So the takeaway is that in the end, I made the effort to look past the accent and focus on the facts. But the truth is, not everyone will do that for you. So that's how I realize every single day that why accent matters.
That's a fascinating story. So, what you're saying is that not speaking clearly can lead to specific business outcomes or negative outcomes in this case.
Absolutely. So business is all about trust.
Mm.
And with a standard accent, with a good accent and a nice vocabulary, you can build trust. As opposed the other side, when you're struggling with expressing ideas, you don't even know how to put what your product is capable of, then you might lose.
How did you realize this, though, 4 years ago when we first started working together? That was there something specific like that that happened with another company or an experience working abroad or visiting abroad that made you realize that you wanted to focus on this in particular?
Actually, why I started to practice on my accent was not really business related at first. So I just wanted to get better at it. So you have to know I'm an introvert, so it's not helping when you have to speak up or just communicate some ideas, or especially not in front of a crowd of people. Then, when you have an accent and you can express yourself in a fluid way, then it helps a lot. So, for introverts, is especially.
Hmm. Um, what has the experience been like for you? And has it been a struggle or has it come easily to you over these past couple of years to change your accent?
Actually, when I made the first recording for you, just to evaluate my baseline where we should start, then actually I waited until nobody is at home because I felt
Hmm.
so awkward just making a recording in English. And with our practice, my confidence grew. So I pretty looking forward to any opportunity to speak in English now.
Wow, that's fantastic. What do you feel has helped you the most? And what advice would you give to other non-native speakers who'd like to modify their accent?
Okay, so I use different techniques to improve my English. So, first of all, I listen to English podcasts whenever I'm doing chores or walking the dog, whenever, because listening to the language is key. That's how you get used to the rhythm and patterns of English. So, that's the first one.
Hmm.
And the next one, when I'm alone in the car commuting every day, I practice shadowing. So that's important because if you want to get better at speaking in English, then the thing you actually need to practice is speaking, right?
Hmm. Can you tell us a little bit more about shadowing, Robert? People have different ways of practicing shadowing. What's your preferred way of doing it?
Actually, I choose any podcast that should not be too fast and not slow, of course, but something about my interests, about AI or my job or psychology, for example. That's an interesting topic. So I listen to that podcast in real time. I just repeat the sentences just the way I hear it. So doing it over and over, you get accustomed to the rhythm and the patterns.
Usually, what I recommend is that people take like a piece of audio and listen to it for like 5 to 15 minutes and just repeat whatever they hear during that time period without repeating, without going back. Do you do something like that too, or do you kind of stop and start?
Since I'm driving, I don't stop the audio.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes some part of the sentence I miss because I'm not fast enough to repeat it. But it doesn't matter. It's not that it should be a complete text, but practice, pronounce it, and try to keep up the pace, you know.
Hmm. How long do you shadow for? If like for the whole commute? How
For
long
the
is your
whole
commute?
commute, but you know, it's not a huge city and it takes about 20-25 minutes.
What else has worked for you in this journey?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a computer programmer. So and I use AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude Code, Codex in my job. And even though these models are flawless in my native language, I still use them in English so I can practice constructing sentences
Okay.
and expressing exactly what I want. And I probably save a few tokens on translation as well. I'm not sure. What's more, what else do I do to improve my English? Is, of course, I read a lot of English books. But there's a twist. I almost always read aloud, even if it drives my family a little bit crazy. Actually, they're used to it by now. Like, daddy's talking to himself again, nothing new here. But all those techniques has one limitation. If you don't get external feedback, you might develop bad habits without noticing. So that's why working with an accent coach like Stephen is so valuable. He can help me notice and correct bad habits before they become permanent. So I really recommend to have an accent coach because otherwise your journey can go awry.
Last question. Have you seen any results from your accent training? Have you gotten any feedback from colleagues or traveling abroad or anything like that that's made you recognize progress that you've made with your accent?
People usually don't give feedback face to face because they're shy to share their thoughts, but internally they have the bias, of course.
Mhm.
But they're not helping you with feedback. So the need of repeating myself, I was able to totally eliminate that. But usually I don't get feedback from people, not the way that would be helpful.
Yeah.
But sometimes I realized that no feedback is a feedback as well.
Hmm.
Because when you're at the beginning of the journey and just started to learn English or any other language and you progress, they will give you feedback like for a child, just patronizing and
As you get older, people don't really give you feedback unless they don't understand something, right?
you're right. It's partially because of getting older and they don't want to judge you because of your age. But not just that. When you advance to a level, they don't feel they would be entitled to judge you.
Well, thanks for the answers, Robert. And before I let you go, I wanted to go over a piece of text that we had practiced. I'd given you to practice. This was the type of thing that we might go over in a typical class. Okay, let's hear the passage, please. And this passage has all of these tricky contractions in it. And give it a shot, please.
All right, thank you. I've been thinking about our plans for next month, and I'm sure that'll be the perfect time to take a short trip together. The weather should be mild, and it'll give us a chance to relax before things get busy again. We still need to decide on the details, though. What'll we do during the day? Where are we going to stay? And what are the must see places everyone keeps talking about? I know there are dozens of options from quiet mountain towns and to busy coastal cities. If we plan carefully, we'll avoid unnecessary stress and actually enjoy the experience. I'm also curious about what we've forgotten to consider transportation, reservations, or even simple things like packing lists. Sometimes the small details matter more than we expect. Still, I'm confident that once we make a clear plan, everything that will feel overwhelming right now will seem manageable. In the end, it'll be less about the destination and more about spending meaningful time together wherever we decide to go.
Thank you, Robert. And for those of you listening, I'll post this passage on our website and in the show notes so you'll be able to see it for yourself and try it out for yourself. It's a little bit longer, quite a bit longer than the normal practice passage that we have at the end of the podcast, most of our instructional podcasts. But since you're really one of my advanced students, I have to give you something a little bit more challenging. And excellent job with all of the contractions. Those are some really tricky contractions. There was one that was a little bit off. This one here, there are dozens of options. That's a tricky one.
Certainly, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, you have that double R vowel. There are, read it again. I know there are dozens of options.
I know there are dozens of options.
Excellent. Watch your TH too, Robert, your voice TH together. Make sure your tongue is low and touching your top teeth.
Together.
Mm-hmm. And things. Make sure that the NG is properly articulated. Things.
Things.
You had excellent rhythm. At one point, there was a little bit of a break. What'll we do during the day? I would just keep that together. What'll we do during the day?
What'll we do during the day?
Excellent. Well, fantastic job. Thanks so much for coming on again. It was great to have you and great to hear your views about this subject and to have you as a guest today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to the podcast.
Many thanks to Robert for coming on the podcast and sharing his views with us. The Accent Journey podcast is brought to you by Accent First Speech Communication Services, online at accentfirst.com, and is hosted by me, Steve Nelson. Our music is Hypnosis by Vondra D. In the next episode, we continue with our instructional format, so make sure you're subscribed to the Accent Journey podcast on your favorite podcast directory. Give us a review if you like the podcast, or send an email at info@accentfirst.com. Until next time, stay consistent, stay focused, and keep working towards your goals.